Hello and welcome to episode 98 on the Everyday Joy podcast. Beck's given us a 5-star review. She said, I've just listened to episode 31 where Joe shared so vulnerably. It is unmissable. Thank you so much for bringing raw, honest, biblical truth to our ears, minds and hearts. What a great way to start the day. Beck, thank you so much for sending through your feedback and sharing what you love about the podcast. And if you really love Joe, who's the guest all of this week and later on this episode, absolutely go back and listen to episode 31. Joe really shares the third part really in her story around her stillborn. It's a powerful, powerful narrative and you get to hear from Joe very shortly. In fact, let's take a listen to today's Bible verse.
If you have faith in Jesus, you won't treat some people better than others. That's found in James chapter 2 verse 1 in the CEV Bible.
Wrapping up this week's episodes on the Everyday Joy podcast, Joe Chapman. Joe, so good to have you.
Thank you. I love this. It's so good to be with you.
Yeah, and one of the things I do enjoy about our conversations is I think with each episode you unpack another layer of your life, another layer of the experiences you've had. We're going to do that again today. But what are your first impressions of this verse, Joe?
Oh, I think it just hits anybody and everybody, I would imagine, at some point in their life in the feels, because we all treat some people better than others for all varying reasons. And I think it's confronting.
It is, yeah. Whether you're on the receiving end of that and you've experienced people treating you differently based on the way you look, or maybe you're someone who maybe has had some life experiences and therefore you steer clear of certain groups of people. I think, like you said, Joe, this verse really does challenges me for sure. If you have faith in Jesus, you won't treat some people better than others. So what does this verse, Joe, tell you about who God is or what matters to him?
I think God is someone who teaches us to look at that which is eternal, which is the spirit of a person, get to know the spirit of a person and not focus on the temporal, which is, where you live, your ethnicity, your clothes, your outer experiences. For some reason, I'll speak for me, you tend to judge people based on that first 5 seconds with the look, but you miss out on that eternal spirit that God values most.
Yeah, and I can speak to this because you can't see me, but I'm Indian. So I've got darker skin, I've got dark hair, I've got dark eyes. And I have walked into department stores and noticed that people talk to everyone else but me. That still happens, Joe.
Oh,
certainly.
no.
It does. It does. Let me tell you.
They're missing out.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. I'm like, well, you're missing out. You've assumed things about me.
Yes.
And my parents have experienced it to a greater extent, being Indian immigrants and still having a little bit of the Indian accent. And the moment they open their mouths, they get a lot of that. And so I think for me, this verse really does it brings up stuff within me because I face it on a daily basis. But at the same time, I've had the most amazing people come alongside me and teach me how to navigate through that. And what I love is that Jesus sees me on the inside. And that's what I remind myself of. So I love this verse so much, although it is challenging at times.
And you're so gorgeous. What are they doing? Gorgeous inside and out, Joy.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
It's true.
How has this verse come alive in your world?
Well, it has been something that I've really grown in, and I think if I'm really honest, I didn't realise how judgmental or fearful I was. So the things that come to my mind immediately are sometimes we treat people better than others due to a fear. We are worried that they come from a certain group, you feel insecure, you're not sure, biases that people get grouped together for certain crimes or certain, areas that they live in, or we have that because of a lack of control. I don't understand them. I can't control this situation. I'll stay away. Or it's low self-esteem. So you put other people down because it makes you feel better about yourself. And there are some motivators I see that we treat some people better than others. But a big slap in the face, a big redirection from God for me, is the fact that when you have faith, you should see people like Jesus does. And he spoke to the woman at the well, the woman caught in adultery, Zacchaeus in the tree, the tax collectors. He didn't have any preference, no matter who you are or what you did, but he saw deep into the spirit of a person. For me, I grew up very conservative, Eastern Melbourne, Bible Belt, and I would have been very nervous about anybody that was heavily tattooed, had a drug or alcohol background, homelessness, because of all of those things I mentioned. I didn't understand it. It meant that you're a terrible person if you take drugs, or that you've got bad morals if you're homeless, or all of these preconceived notions about a person. Well, my eldest daughter has gone through drug and alcohol addiction, and she has a lot of tattoos, and she is a beautiful girl with a journey in God, a really precious heart, but she's got a lot of struggles. And because she's my daughter, I see her as Jesus sees her, because she's my flesh and blood. And she has powerfully taught me to see other people the same way. When I see somebody who's homeless, my daughter's been homeless, I wonder if anybody gave that man food. I wonder if anybody has said hello to them, because there's been a period of time where my daughter was like that. When I see a young person with tattoos, I don't assume they're a drug dealer. I don't assume that they're in crime. I assume they're creative, and maybe they love art like my daughter does. Sometimes God teaches you how to see people on the inside when you've experienced it in a personal way. That's changed me, and I'm really grateful for the diversity of my daughter, because she's taught me to see things from a God perspective, and not about what suburb you live in, what clothes you wear. I mean, I can't believe I've ever been that shallow. But the adventure of God is allowing him to do something in your life. I thought, God, what are you doing with my daughter? God knows what he's doing with my daughter. And when I think he's working on my daughter, he's working on me too.
So, Jo, for that person listening who has found themselves having to walk alongside someone who's very different, or someone that they struggle to, I suppose, see eye to eye, maybe in a work setting, maybe, their child's dating someone that they're like, I don't really know if they're good enough. Yeah. And there's a bit of that gap. What would be your thought or your encouragement to someone who's struggling to see someone value-wise on the same level as them?
Oh, I've done this in a few different occasions, too much to unpack here. But my suggestion is this: pray, number one, for that person, but most of all, pray for yourself. Pray for God to give you the eyes to see that person like Jesus does, and ask for how you can speak love, because sometimes you're praying for God to work on that person. But as you ask God to work on that person, you're actually opening your heart for God to work on you. And it is something that changes you powerfully. And I can say from personal experience, love people who are unlovely. Include people who are on the outer. Because what happens is they get blessed, but you get changed more than you can ever hope or think. It's a way of speeding up your own connection with God to love the unlovable.
As we wrap up today's episode, man, it is so important that we treat people the same way Jesus would. We can so easily get entangled, and I really choose that word specifically. We can get tangled up in the web of all of these expectations, preconceived notions, cultural limitations, and we just forget that we are called to be Jesus's hands and feet. And when Jesus walked the earth, he ate with the tax collectors. He empowered women. He chose to spend time with children. Jesus saw value in everyone because he knew that each and every person is created in the image of God. So today's application is very simple. As you head into the next couple of days, could you really take on board today's Bible verse? James chapter 1 verse 2. If you have faith in Jesus, you won't treat some people better than others. And maybe you're thinking to yourself, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm pretty sure I treat everyone really well. Well, before you assume that of yourself, can I encourage you, and I'm going to do this myself as well, to take it to God in prayer first. Ask him to reveal the parts in your life, the aspects of your personality where you might not be living out this scripture. and be open to what He might reveal about maybe an area in your life that you do need to work on. It's a challenging verse today, but honestly, what a way for us to be God's people, to be a person who has faith in Jesus. James chapter 2, verse 1. Hey, that wraps up today's episode on the Everyday Joy podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of the previous ones, do leave a written 5-star review. We haven't had a June review yet. A few in May, but nothing in the month of June. So if you have started listening over the course of this month, I would love to hear from you. If you want to let me know more about a specific episode or a specific topic you'd like to cover, the email address is below. I look forward to catching up next week right here on the Everyday Joy podcast.